On a bitterly cold winter morning, as snow dusted the streets of London, a man burst into the sitting room at Baker Street. He was tall, broad-shouldered, and well-dressed, but the worry etched into his face aged him terribly. "Mr. Holmes," he said breathlessly, "I am Alexander Harwood, senior partner at Harwood & Wynne, private bankers. A great tragedy has struck my home. My son is in jail, and the nation's priceless treasure is at stake." Holmes gestured for him to sit. "Please tell me everything from the beginning." Harwood took a moment to collect himself. "As part of our services, clients occasionally entrust us with heirlooms or national assets. 3 days ago, I received into my custody the Royal Emerald Crown, a family piece belonging to a noble line. 39 emeralds in gold, valued beyond imagination. I feared theft, so I locked it in my dressing room bureau. My son Arthur, my niece Eliza, and 3 servants reside with me. Last night," he continued, "after bidding my children good night, I heard soft footsteps in the hallway. To my horror, I discovered Arthur in my dressing room, holding the crown. A corner of it had been broken off. When I confronted him, he stood in silence. The police were summoned. This morning, they found 36 emeralds, 3 are missing." Holmes leaned forward. "Did Arthur explain himself?" "No. Not a word." Holmes steepled his fingers. "Did you hear anything unusual earlier?" "There was a faint sound that woke me. The police think it was Arthur closing his door." "A thief slamming a door?" "Unlikely," Holmes said with a trace of sarcasm. "What about the missing gems?" "They've searched the house thoroughly. Even the garden has been combed." Holmes' eyes narrowed. "This case is not as simple as it appears. Your theory, that your son risked everything, removed the crown, broke off 3 stones, and returned with the rest, is far-fetched. A guilty man would at least try to lie." Instead, he said nothing. Harwood clenched his fists. "But if he's innocent, why does he stay silent?" "That is what we must uncover," Holmes replied. "Let us go to your home. There are details I wish to examine." Holmes, Dr. Watson, and Mr. Harwood arrived at Fairside Manor, a stately home set behind iron gates and snow-covered lawns. Holmes immediately began a quiet inspection, circling the house and walking slowly down a narrow lane by the stables. Inside, Watson and Harwood waited in silence until the door opened and a young woman entered. Eliza Harwood was pale, her eyes swollen from tears, but she held herself with dignity. "You've released Arthur, haven't you?" she asked softly. "No, Eliza," Harwood sighed. "This must be investigated thoroughly. But I know he's innocent. He wouldn't steal. Maybe he's angry you suspect him. I saw him with the crown." Eliza pressed her hand to her chest. "He must have just picked it up. Please, uncle." Holmes re-entered, brushing snow from his shoes. "You are Miss Eliza Harwood, I presume?" Yes. Ask anything you like, sir. Holmes' questions were rapid and precise. You closed the windows yourself the night before. Yes, and checked them again this morning. There's a maid who has a sweetheart. Yes. She mentioned it last night. Her sweetheart is Francis, the grocer. He has a wooden leg. Holmes' eyes gleamed. Did you see him last night? Yes. I caught her sneaking back in through the kitchen door. I saw the man waiting nearby. He stood farther up the path than necessary. Holmes nodded. That tells me a great deal. In Howard's dressing room, Holmes examined the lock of the bureau and opened it with a key provided by Howard. It's a silent lock, Holmes remarked. No wonder you heard nothing. He pulled the crown from its velvet case and laid it on the table. One corner had clearly been broken. Holmes attempted to bend the adjacent corner. It would take immense strength to break this. More than most men possess. And the noise would be considerable. Are you telling me this happened while you slept just feet away? Howard paled. I don't know what to think. Holmes asked, when you found Arthur, what was he wearing? Just his shirt and trousers. No shoes. That will be important, Holmes murmured. With your permission, I'll examine the grounds further. Holmes returned an hour later, snow clinging to his boots, his face unreadable. I have all the information I need for now, he told Howard. I shall return to Baker Street and look further into this. Holmes departed again that evening in disguise, dressed like a ragged laborer. He returned briefly with an old boot and a smirk, helped himself to tea, and vanished once more. When Watson awoke the next morning, Holmes was already at the table, sipping coffee, perfectly groomed. Mr. Howard arrived, visibly worn and shaken. There's been another tragedy. Eliza has left. She left a note. She blames herself for Arthur's fate and has gone. Holmes stood. Then I believe your troubles are nearly over, Mr. Howard. You've found the gems. Holmes opened a drawer, retrieved a small gold corner set with 3 emeralds, and dropped it on the table. Howard gasped and held the piece like a sacred relic. My fortune is saved. Holmes' face darkened. You owe someone an apology. Your son, he has acted more honorably than any man could have hoped. Holmes finally laid out the entire truth. When you went to bed, Eliza opened the hall window and spoke with her secret lover, Sir Gavin Bramble. He convinced her to steal the crown. She handed it out to him. Arthur saw everything from behind a curtain. Rather than expose her, he waited until she left, then dashed into the snow barefoot, caught up to Bramble, and fought him. In the struggle, they each held the crown, twisting and breaking it. Arthur returned with most of it and was trying to repair it when you found him. Howard's eyes filled with tears. He stayed silent to protect her, and I treated him like a criminal. Holmes continued, in the snow, I traced their footprints, yours, your son's, and Sir Gavin's. I discovered where the struggle occurred and found blood, proving a fight. I disguised myself, visited Bramble's residence, and learned from his valet that he had a head wound. I then purchased a pair of his old boots. They matched the snow prints exactly. I confronted him. He denied everything at first, then threatened me. I drew my pistol. He confessed he had sold the gems for £600. I tracked the buyer and repurchased them for £1,000 each. Thus, your gems are returned. Howard rose and extended his hand. You have saved not only my wealth but my son's reputation. And Eliza? Watson asked. She's with Bramble, Holmes said. Wherever he is, she is. But believe me, her punishment has already begun. With that, the mystery of the Emerald Crown was resolved, not just with recovered jewels, but with the restoration of a father's trust in his son, and the silent triumph of justice carried out by Sherlock Holmes.